Good. All right. Welcome. Okay. I have a group of people now. I see Garrett Snyder. I see Katie. Janet, thank you for joining us. Jerry, good to see you. We have anybody else I haven't identified yet?
And then I'm going to turn the video off so I can just listen.
Yeah. Makes total sense. You should do that. Okay.
And David, I think we've done extensive introductions on other calls, but
yeah.
I would just ask if you would allow a few minutes for Garrett to introduce himself. He's our VSB legal intern.
Okay. That would be lovely. Garrett, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Garrett Schneider. I'm the new legal intern here at the VSB. I'm studying at University of Richmond School of Law. Come from Massachusetts and just really happy to be here. Really interested to actually start getting to do some hands-on work in the legal field. So
excellent.
Excited to sit in and listen.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4 committee members. 5. I think we have a quorum. Yes. We have a quorum for talking and a quorum for action, which is great.
That's a good segue into the first item on the agenda.
Okay. Yes. Yes. So I'd like to call the meeting to order then. Chris, do we need a roll call with locations of participating members?
We do.
Okay. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to call on people where they appear on my screen. Sandra, could you tell us? It looks like you might be. Well, the protocol is if you're at your office location, please identify the street address. If you're from home or some other personal location, just say what city or county you're in.
Okay, Danville, Virginia.
Okay, perfect. Good enough. Jerry.
Hunts Inlet, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. Excellent.
No.
Katie.
I'm at my office. The address here is 1169 Edgewater Drive, Grundy, Virginia. I hope that's right.
That's pretty close, I'm sure.
Okay.
Good. Bruce is on I-81. I guess that's where we can identify his location.
Yes, traveling through Wythe County currently.
Okay. Good enough. And I'm at my legal aid office, 513 Church Street in Lynchburg. And have I missed anybody? Okay. There we are. Thank you all. We'll go ahead and start. Are there any additions for our agenda? We have 9 items, including the call to order and the adjournment. Okay, not hearing any right now. Bruce and I agreed that it would be helpful to start off with a Freedom of Information Act overview about what rules we need to follow and best practices. So who's presenting that for us?
That's
Hey,
Janet,
folks.
David.
Janet.
Janet Vankirk. I am the Deputy Director with the Virginia State Bar. And I am also the Virginia State Bar's FOIA manager. And I could actually do this part in about 30 seconds.
I apologize. I forgot to introduce Andrea Bridgman, who is on as a guest. She is chair of our parallel committee on the Access Commission, and I've invited her to sit in on all of our meetings. And Andrea, could you identify your city or county location?
I'm laughing. I'm going to stay off camera. My exact location is 3912 Keller Avenue in Alexandria. It's a townhouse that I rent.
Okay. I apologize. Janet, I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
thank you. And thank you for letting me listen in. It saves David some time and gives me more information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, David, and hi, Andrea. So I can do it in 15 seconds. So the law you have to follow is the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and there you go. Now, not everyone likes reading it as much as I do. So just FYI, when you do all virtual meetings, which this meeting is an all virtual meeting, meaning that you don't have members 3 or more members physically present in one place, you don't actually have to say where you are. So a little quirk about FOIA and all virtual meetings. It's when you have a hybrid meeting in that you have the quorum in one place and other people joining virtually. Not only do they have to say in generality where they are, they also have to say one of the 4 reasons in the statute as to why they are not there. Okay, so basic FOIA is Oprah government law. We all love it, and all of you guys, and half of you guys at least, work with it at some point in your jobs, which is why I'm here, because there apparently were a lot of questions on this. FOIA has 2 parts. First part is documents. Second part is open, is the meetings part. And the documents part, basically, since you guys are a sub-body of the Virginia State Bar, any documents that you create and or have are subject to being requested by a member of the public to be provided to them for Freedom of Information Act. This also includes any handwritten notes that you may have taken during the meetings, in addition to any notes that you are officially releasing, any documents you're officially releasing from this committee or the larger committee. If you get a FOIA request, just contact Chris or me and we will take care of that for you. It may mean that you give us our documents, but we will respond to them. If you get contacted by someone asking for documents, please do that immediately. The Freedom of Information Act gives the requesting body, once they have notice of the request, 5 days in which to provide either a preliminary response or the documents. And that starts on the day after it's made to the member of the body, and you guys are members of the body. So just let us know if anyone wants anything from you, and we'll work with you on getting the response in compliance. That's pretty much all you really need to know about the records laws on that. Otherwise, just call Chris or me and we'll answer those questions for you. As for meetings, FOIA has basically 3 components for meetings: the requirement for notice, the requirement for quorum, and the requirements for records to be kept. For the notice for most meetings has to be, or notice for all meetings needs to be at least 3 days posted, and in that posting has to include what the location is, what the means of it for it are, and what the general agenda topics are. In so doing, we do that for you here, so you don't need to worry about that. We put it on our website, we put it on the Commonwealth calendar, we have it at our front desk. For this one, you guys had a little quirky because it was within the 3-day period. We're counting this as a special meeting under the statute because it was impromptu held, and under that, you have to just basically give notice to the public of the scheduling of that meeting at the same time as you guys become aware of the scheduling of that meeting. So we immediately went and put the notice of this meeting happening on the website to be in compliance. There's actually currently something going on with some school board about their retreat over the summer and whether or not they gave. So they canceled it, then they rescheduled it, and now they're still doing something on it. So there's always something where we want to make sure we're learning something new and we're doing things the way we need to under the statute. Quorum. The Virginia Freedom of Information Act does not define quorum. It basically says that in order for a meeting to be held, you have to have your quorum. Our quorum is defined in the bylaws, and our bylaws require a quorum of 3. And if it's a committee of 3, then the quorum is 2. You guys don't have any subcommittees that are 3 or less, and so you don't have to worry about that. We chose 3 because the other part of FOIA is that you have a public meeting if 3 members of a public body are together discussing the public business. So let's all remember that when you guys are out and about, enjoy all the things that you were doing, but don't talk about the public committee of the public body on which you guys are in together unless you have done the notice requirements for that. And I think that about covers it for what, Chris, you wanted me to cover. Are there any questions?
Janet, will you just speak very briefly about emailing and how that creates a meeting unintentionally? Because I think that's probably the best practice that everyone needs to be most aware of. Okay, so generally email is not considered to be a public meeting, but it can be. And there have been a couple of cases, including in the Virginia Supreme Court, wherein they have found it or not found something to be a public meeting through email communications. The basic, what we say is don't contemporaneous have exchanges with 2 or more members of this public body. So if Jerry and Katie want to email back and forth, go back and forth all you want to. If they add in David, that is, let's have an email to share information only, but you cannot have an exchange because that dialogue makes it a public meeting.
They have held like 2 hours delay between responses has been found not to be a public meeting. You can, like Chris will set up, like if you guys wanted to get everyone's input on something, Chris can set up a Google form. You could all put your information in at the same time. It's the exchange back and forth, which makes the email interaction become a public meeting, in which case then you're in violation of FOIA because you haven't done the notice requirement, et cetera. So 2 of you, go do all you want. 3 of you, don't talk about it in public and don't have back and forth email exchanges.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 2 people can have an email exchange between each other of committee business, but we can't have 3 taking part. Okay,
That is correct, sir.
thank you. Janet, could you do the same presentation tomorrow for our legal subcommittee? Would that be possible?
That would be my pleasure, David.
I'm sorry to hear that, but thank you. I understand.
I'm sorry for you, Chris, and Andrea, who will hear it twice.
Yeah.
Hey, so Janet, so the scheduling of a meeting, like when Bruce sent out the email to see if we could all get together. Well, one, I try to be mindful of not hitting reply all to everybody all the time anyway.
Thank
but yeah, I try to be. But sometimes I feel like other people want to see what's going on. But the scheduling of a meeting, for example, I think I even wrote Bruce and said, I'll wait to weigh in after everybody else does to see what suits them. And, or perhaps should we do a scheduling doodle or whatever it is that you call it. So the email to everyone, I'm assuming if we're a strict constructionist, an email to everyone saying, let's schedule something is actually business.
It is business, but it is not under the case law that found the 2-hour exchange back and forth didn't constitute a public meeting. It's not a public meeting. So it's business, but it's not a public meeting because there's not the exchange of information. So you'll see, Chris said, what are your thoughts on blind copying? And I was like, I have no problems if you want to blind copy. I just always let folks know if I'm blind copying. She can send something out to all of you guys, and that is giving you guys information. And that's fine. That's just a record of the public body. What the problem comes is when you have the back and forth. So Chris and folks will start doing doodle polls so you can throw your information in. But let's say you found this awesome article and you wanted everyone to know about the really cool thing that will inform the discussions of the group. You can send that out to everyone and just say, please don't respond to this. Let's discuss this at our next meeting, or respond to me directly and not copy all in the group.
Okay. Well, thank you.
And I might have to defer to someone who may have a former office as our chief attorney in Virginia to see if I missed anything. Mr. Kilgore, did I miss anything?
You did not, and you were very quick with it too, so good.
I'm practicing
Those are
for my
usually
retirement
2-hour
career.
meetings. Those are usually 2-hour training meetings, so thank you for making it 10 minutes.
I am happy to do that and be your auctioneer at your next event. All right, thank you, folks. I have to head back to another meeting, but I appreciate you having me join and give you that information.
It was a great summary, Janet. Thank you.
And David, if you'll just indulge me for 1 second,
Yeah.
On the, specially called meeting front, I think best practices, let's try going forward to have more advance notice so that we're not relying on that. Also, just from an administrative perspective, it's much easier for us at the bar to support the work of the committee and its subcommittees if we have a little bit more time in advance of meetings. So I know this group is eager to get working, and that's why it happened. But I think going forward, let's give ourselves more of a window.
I agree.
And I think I was a little tenuous in doing that. I didn't have much of a problem because it was your first meeting. But you will be doing regularly scheduled business meetings, whether you are scheduling them ahead of time. So yeah, let's 3 days moving forward would actually be, I would say, required in order to be in compliance with the statute.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thanks, folks.
Thank you, Janet. Okay, Bruce, you and I have been warned.
Very good, very good. Yeah, and I do apologize for us whipping this together with so little notice, but I'm coming up against this hard deadline of tomorrow where I will be unavailable for most of the next 2 weeks, and I wanted to make sure we got the ball rolling before I headed across the pond for all those days.
Good, and we appreciate that too, so thank you. Okay, our next agenda item is quick review of mission statements. And I want to thank Chris for preparing all the items we're going to be looking at today. And I'll just do a quick read of that. Our mission is to examine and raise awareness of the declining number of lawyers practicing in Virginia, resulting impacts on the population and economy of the Commonwealth, particularly in geographic areas that may be described as legal deserts, and to make recommendations to address those trends, mitigate adverse impacts, and improve access to legal services, the legal profession, and justice system for all Virginians. As everyone I hope is aware, we have a separate subcommittee dealing with the overall question of declining number of applicants for the Virginia bar. And so our focus in this subcommittee is really on legal deserts, those particular geographic areas that have insufficient access to justice, and what can we do to change that. So any comments about the mission statement? Okay, Chris, do we need a vote on the mission statement? No, okay, thank you. I'll move on then. And the agenda next calls for a brief discussion of the subcommittee's overall role in implementing the mission statement, including scope. I just gave a very quick summary of my view of how we're going to be implementing it. I will add, I think that we will be conducting field hearings. I think that's a very important part of information gathering for us, to visit localities and hear firsthand about what kinds of problems people have finding legal help and what impact it has on them in the conduct of their family life, their business life, whatever it may be. And then also to pay attention to academic research, national studies that may have been done of OASIS issues. Other states have looked at these. We should see what programs they have adopted, because there certainly have been states that have done this. So by the time we are done in the fall, we should have a comprehensive, I think, overview of the universe in Virginia and of the country, and then recommendations based on what we think would be best. Would anyone like to go ahead, Bruce?
I was just going to say, in terms of those field hearings, what would do you envision the format of those being? Is that the sort of thing where, for example, if we had a field hearing down there in Grundy at the Appalachian School of Law, we would do that, I assume, in the moot courtroom down there, and would we have a court reporter that would be present to record and transcribe the contents of that hearing, or how would that work?
That is an excellent question. The Access Commission is also doing field hearings, hence Andrea's involvement today, about access to justice issues around the state. So we've agreed to work together and to conduct these together to the extent that we can. And we've sort of mapped out a very loose schedule and parts of Virginia to go to. The issue that you raise about what happens on site, what we've talked about in the Access Commission is issuing a call, I think, beforehand for people to submit short statements of if they would like to come testify, or if they don't want to come testify, just to submit statements. But if they do testify, just a short summary of what they would say. So among those, we would select jointly people we thought would be worthwhile to hear from in person, and invite those, and also have a period for members of the public who just showed up without prior notice, and if they want to sign up on a witness list, to hear briefly from them as well. You know, the Lynchburg City Council allows 3 minutes for a member of the public, 10 minutes for a representative of an organization, that kind of limit. Yes, we have no budget, I think, for this from the State Bar. So hiring a court reporter may or may not be challenging. But there's also software that exists. On my iPad now, I have an app that both records voice and also creates a transcript as it goes. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on what we do about that?
I was actually thinking the same thing. This meeting is being transcribed by Teams. So I wonder if there's a way for us to run it through Teams so that we can record and transcribe that way. But I think there's some no-cost solutions that I could certainly explore as the liaison.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm glad you mentioned Teams in particular, because I also like the idea of being able to stream these hearings live, so that members of our subcommittee and full committee who can't be present in person can be able to hear and perhaps speak live to interact that way. And also members of the public can hear this as well, because I think it's important to be able to have that access.
And let me interrupt for a second. This is Andrea Bridgman. So I have had conversations with folks from Maryland about listening tours that they did, and they highly recommended recording, in part because, I mean, even just for the benefit of the people conducting the meeting, you can't possibly accurately take notes while you're listening to people, truly listening to them. So, the team sounds like a great solution, but at least an audio recording is helpful for whatever use you want to make of the meeting comments later on.
Excellent. Yeah. Something I love about my app, and Teams may be able to do this as well, is as you read it, an online transcript. If you're not sure what was said was actually transcribed directly, you can click on that word and hear the actual spoken words from the recording. So that's a great feature as well. Good. Okay. Any other comments on logistics of field hearings? Further on,
David,
agenda,
I
yes,
think
we're going to talk about locations and timing. Go ahead, Chris.
One of the things I just wanted to bring to the subcommittee's attention is that there is this bullet point in the outline that we'll need at least 3 committee members at each meeting, which I think is correct because of the quorum requirements. This is probably the type of thing that, to give us as much flexibility as possible, one of the goals of the subcommittee should be to present this to the full study committee and recommend that the study committee, even though it's focused on this issue of OASIS legal deserts, that the study committee hosts the field hearings so that we can pull from the full roster of committee members in order to meet the quorum requirements. So I just want to put that out there. And then we might benefit from just having the committee vote on hosting these field hearings and recommending that the full committee host them, just so that we have a clear marching orders to recommend up to the full study committee.
Great. I think that's a terrific suggestion, and yes, they should vote on it. So good. So that we need to today decide we're going to ask them to vote on that. Do we need a motion on that, or could we have consensus that, is there any objection? I like to go on, is there any objection format? Is there any objection to asking the full committee to vote as Chris recommended, on the full committee being the formal host of these field hearings? And therefore, that gives us the broader full committee to help us make the quorum. Hearing no objection, I'll consider that adopted.
And then with the location option, is that something you wanted input on today, or do you want to talk through the nitty-gritty details of the field hearings at another time?
Okay. Well, I would love to, and we have on our list of topics to discuss today, we have a list of locations on page 3. And we can go ahead to that now, since we're discussing this question. The list that we're looking at, I think, was assembled by Andrea and me for the listening tour of the Access Commission. But what it covers is lower tidewater and the Eastern Shore, with maybe a hearing location in Norfolk. Lower Piedmont, we identified Pennsylvania. Southwest Virginia, I said Abingdon, but Grundy would also work. Lower Shenandoah and the Alleghenies. I mentioned Hot Springs during the VBA summer meeting, but it's probable that's coming up too quickly, I think, to be realistic for us. So never mind Hot Springs unless we want to be there anyway. The Upper Shenandoah identified Winchester, Upper Piedmont, Warrenton on the east side of the Blue Ridge, and then Upper Tidewater, Reedville. So that was the list that we came up with. Are there other suggestions about where we should conduct field hearings, or are these too many, or are some of these locations not good? Welcome any thoughts on those right now.
Well, I think we need to get the largest amount of data from as many diverse localities and voices as we can get. So if we can make it happen with the resources at our disposal, just in terms of committee members, and expanding the.
Bruce, we have a choppy connection. So, Chris, are you understanding what he's saying?
No. I hear him supporting geographic diversity.
Okay.
That's it.
Bruce, we missed most of what you just said. Could you say it again?
Well, I think you all got the gist of it. I think the more.
I think he's talking about making these as accessible as possible. And I could follow up with him later about what does that mean? But does that mean Abingdon instead of Grundy because Abingdon's on 81? Maybe. Okay, but any other comments on field hearing locations? And we would start these probably in August and run into the fall. So a couple every month to complete, I think, by before the holidays, certainly. Okay, not hearing any other comments. So without objection, we'll adopt that list as our starting point, and of course we can change as we go along. All right, I'm going back to the agenda now. Okay, our topic right now is the committee's overall role. I think we've discussed that, including scope, information gathering, a research plan. Let's look at what else we would be doing to gather information. We have a list of stakeholders, including lawyers, local lawyers, bar leaders, local judges, local government elected and appointed officials, Chamber of Commerce leaders, local public and service providers, legal aid, local public. We should certainly include community groups. The Virginia Alliance of Paralegal Associations is recommended by somebody. The Federal Legal Services Corporation may have done work on this. Legal Services Corporation of Virginia, academic researchers, American Bar Association, and other states. So that's a lot of outreach, asking if people have input or information to offer on what we're doing. I think they all sound valuable, but it just takes somebody to be in charge, or somebody's plural, to divide that up. And here's Bruce back. For the outreach part, And then we also have, under research initiatives, the next topic, we talked about reaching definitions, identifying and inviting guest speakers to present, assigning members to contact data and analysis sources such as the Weldon Cooper Center, some of the other places that I've mentioned, VCU and ODU may have done interesting work. Very much a parallel for us is the health profession, which also faces the desert issue, very similar to what we do, and it would be useful to see what's been done about health deserts, particularly in Virginia, other states. Yeah. Okay. So is there any part of that that members of this subcommittee have comments on, or would like to volunteer to take part of that outreach on as a personal project?
I'm happy to do whichever part of it you need me to take on.
Okay.
And David, if you want, we can just agree on the overall broad research plan and information gathering plan, and then I can develop sort of a matrix around like the different pieces and ask for people to sign up through a Microsoft form. And then, you might want to, co-chairs, set an expectation that everyone signs up for at least one, and that maybe you have no more than 2 people on each so that they can freely communicate without violating VFOIA.
Hey, Christy, can I ask a question? I'm sorry. Can you shrink it just a little bit so we can see a little bit more on the screen?
Absolutely. Is that better?
Yeah, thank you. It is. It just kind of, it gets lost in translation when it's enlarged, even though I have very old eyes, bad eyes. It's better for it to be a little bit smaller so we can have a little more continuity. Thank you. Yeah, Christy, I agree. I think that your approach is great. And then when we can see where people need to be or want to be, outside of just us or the folks here, we the people in this meeting.
Good. Yeah, Chris, I very much like the idea, the matrix idea too. So it's the volunteer needs are clearly defined, and 1 or 2 people, hopefully 2 on each one part of the matrix. Sounds great. So thank you for volunteering to do that. Any other comments about the information gathering process? Number 6 on the agenda, identify, briefly discuss, and assign short and long-term tasks. I think that's included in what we just discussed. Chris, are there other tasks that we have not touched on yet?
I may find that to be the case as I develop the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the goals for the next meeting, co-chairs, may be to just confirm the assignments and that everything is covered under the research plan.
Okay.
But I suspect I probably will identify additional areas where we need to assign an individual research.
Okay. Good. Okay. Number 7, discuss how our recommendations will potentially be integrated with the legal subcommittee's work. Right now, I don't know. We should certainly, I think, keep the legal subcommittee informed, and the one that looking at the overall state issues, and vice versa. Just so I think everyone knows how each other's work is progressing, and to me, that's the best thing we can do. So everyone knows everything as much as possible. Christy, have other thoughts?
I think sharing the matrix at the next full committee meeting will help accomplish that. And then, of course, it'll naturally happen, David, because you're the chair of the study committee and you're also co-chairing both of the subcommittees. So I think that you can also in your leadership role, make assignments where you feel, certain research and drafting is most appropriate.
Right. Yes, and certainly down the road as we talk about recommendations, we will both need summaries of what we've learned to be drafted and recommendations to be drafted. So there'll be plenty of writing opportunities too. Good. Last substantive item on the agenda then is to schedule future meetings and dates. Do we want to do that now? Create a monthly schedule, which helps keep us focused. We can always cancel when we decide we don't have any business to transact. What are people's preferences along those lines?
I would suggest that Christy again, or someone submit some type of doodle scheduling format so that the other folks who were not able to participate today are able to voice which dates or times best suit them also.
Okay. Sandra, what are your thoughts on how often we should meet?
Well, I think we have a very healthy agenda. And if we were to really consider what our responsibilities and our mission under each one of these categories would be, I don't know that we would have the benefit of going too long without meetings. So I'm just trying to think here, but then also to not over schedule ourselves so that we can't focus on what our job tasks are. All right, so we hope to have all of this information by the fall, right? That's what I'm hearing, by the fall.
Probably by
Okay.
late fall, I think.
By late fall. So then the subcommittee, maybe also, I would say once a month for the subcommittee. I don't know what other people think, if they feel like that's too much, but sometimes it's nice to just tap in and see how we're doing. Like I say, I hate to overschedule people because it takes away from your work product. But then again, the fall will be here in a blink of an eye, and we need to stay on task.
Yeah, I think the only thing worse than overscheduling is underscheduling. So I agree with you 100%. And I think we need to definitely have a fairly definitive timeline as to what we expect to happen and what we expect to be done by when. And I think that's, with a committee like this, I think that's really the only way to make sure that everyone stays on task, and on the same page on everything going forward.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, yeah, I like the idea of monthly meetings because, it does help us stay focused. I was scrolling down the discussion document that Chris created for us today, and she had two other kinds of work products we haven't discussed, but she could include in our task matrix, include legal desert maps, and then her timeline that she included on that was before the July 10th full committee meeting, of developing the research plan, including dates for meetings and field hearings, research focused data collection. We can confirm what we've talked about today and what we've done with the matrix, what we're doing for guest speakers before December full committee hearing, to draft research findings, agree on directions for content, and determine report drafting timeline, and then before next March, full committee, an initial draft of our report and all related materials, and then before May, the final report, finalize the report and related maps and charts and infographics. So I think that's a good overall time frame to follow, and certainly monthly meetings will help us stay on track. Okay. Any other comments on scheduling? That's the end of our substantive agenda for today. Is there anything else that's come up to anyone as we've been talking?
I was remiss to not mention that one of Garrett's research assignments includes looking at allied legal professionals and the role that they're playing to address lawyer shortages and legal deserts. He's going to be looking at that from the standpoint of what have other states done? What do regulatory reforms look like? And then, you know, what would we have to do here in Virginia to reform? Mostly, I think UPL is implicated by this in order to make space for those legal professionals. So, you know, I'm not saying that that necessarily has to be a recommendation that comes out of this group, but he's going to be doing some work on that because we're hearing from a lot of people that it's worth exploring that option. Similar to, you know, nurse practitioners and physician's assistants in the healthcare realm. So just letting you all know that and hoping that he'll be able to stay looped in to the work that this group is doing.
That is great, Chris. And there's a lot going on in Western states in terms of licensing. Washington State had a limited license legal technician program for a long time, which they've actually folded because it was overly strict and demanding, and only a handful of people went through all the hoops in order to get qualified for that. Alaska has created basically a community, what they call community justice navigator program, which is operated by the Alaska Legal Services program, where they train people who are already part of local communities who may be employed by domestic violence shelters, health clinics, other kind of providers, to give them some specific legal skills in very defined areas, such as landlord tenant, such as child custody. And Alaska Supreme Court allows those trained and supervised by legal aid paralegals to actually appear in court on behalf of clients. And for many rural villages in Alaska, that is the only way that will ever have any kind of legal help. So I think we need to be aware of all those movements. And there is a subcommittee of the Access Commission, Committee on Self-Represented Litigants, that's looking exactly at those programs. It's called our Non-Lawyer Legal Assistance Subcommittee, and it is chaired by Ali Silva and Jim Sandman, the retired president of Legal Services Corporation. So again, more reason for us to stay in touch with those people as well.
Thanks, David.
Right. Okay. I think we're done for today then. I think we're going in some very good directions, and looking forward to the matrix that Chris is going to create for us, signing up for those responsibilities, and then getting started on making things happen. So thank you all.
Thank you.
I wish everyone a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.